In the last few minutes, we've been hearing from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, who is at the G20 summit in Rio.
I'm at the G20 with one message, which is that we must double down on our support for Ukraine. Tomorrow is day 1,000 of the conflict. That's 1,000 days of aggression from Russia and 1,000 days of sacrifice from Ukraine. So that is my clear message here. It's number one on my agenda. Obviously, I'm not going to get into operational details because the only winner, if we were to do that, is Putin, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Can you at least in principle say whether you'd like them to be green-lighted? Because I think you would.
I'm not going to get into operational details because Putin is the only winner in that situation. But I've been really clear for a long time now, we need to double down. We need to make sure Ukraine has what is necessary for as long as necessary, because we cannot allow Putin to win this war.
OK, well, let me quickly ask you about Russia. Have you spoken to Lavrov? President Putin's spokesperson has said the missile decision was adding fuel to the fire. Trump allies say the Biden missile decision could trigger World War III. How do you respond to that?
I haven't spoken to Russia, and I've got no plans to do so.
How do you respond to the risk of the escalation triggering World War III?
We have to support Ukraine in this. This is about the sovereignty of Ukraine, but it's also about our own freedoms. And that's why for 1,000 days we've stood with Ukraine and will continue to do so. My number one issue here at the G20 is to make sure that we absolutely double down on support for Ukraine for as long as it takes.
And your government has announced a shift in policy towards China. You met with President Xi today, the first Prime Minister in 6 years to do so. It has been controversial back home, not least because of those suffering human rights abuses in China, China's support for Russia. Do you understand the risk?
I've been clear that I want a serious and pragmatic relationship with China. It's the second biggest economy in the world. It's one of our biggest trading partners, and therefore we have issues that we clearly need to discuss, whilst of course being clear about the issues that we do not agree on. But I will always act in the national interest, and that was the basis upon which we had our discussions this morning.
Final question, Prime Minister. 20,000 farmers are reportedly descending on London in protest of your budget decisions. You say you're supporting farmers. Why don't they believe you?
We are supporting farmers, and I want to support farmers, and that is why we put £5 billion in the budget over the next 2 years into farming. That's the single biggest sum of money that's ever been put in, alongside money to deal with flooding and to do with the outbreak of disease, which can be terrible for farmers. On the question of inheritance tax, look, I do understand that it's causing concern, but if you take a typical case of a couple wanting to pass a family farm down to one of their children, which would be a very typical example, with all of the thresholds in place, that's £3 million before any inheritance tax is paid. And that's why I'm confident that the vast majority of farms and farmers will not be affected at all by that aspect of the budget. They will be affected by the £5 billion that we're putting into farming, and I'm very happy to work with farmers on that.